The rain fell in heavy sheets, drumming against the cracked pavement of the empty bus stop on the edge of Maplewood, Ohio. Evelyn Carter, a woman of 67 with silver hair pinned loosely beneath a faded blue scarf, sat alone on the cold metal bench. Her hands, weathered from years of folding laundry and scrubbing dishes, clutched a torn photograph, its edges softened by time and touch. In the picture, a young man in a crisp army uniform smiled broadly, his arm around a younger Evelyn, her eyes bright with dreams that had long since faded. The rain blurred the ink, but she held it tightly, as if letting go would erase him entirely. Her coat, threadbare at the elbows, did little to keep out the chill, and her sneaker-sans white, now gray, were soaked through. She shivered, her breath catching in small, shaky clouds. The bus was late again, or maybe it wasn't coming at all. Evelyn didn't care much. She had nowhere urgent to be, just a quiet apartment waiting with a single lamp and a kettle that whistled too loudly. Her son, Michael, had been gone for 22 years, lost to a roadside bomb in a desert she couldn't pronounce. The grief had settled into her bones, heavy and familiar, like an old friend she couldn't shake. She stared at the photo, her thumb tracing Michael's face, and whispered, "I'm sorry, baby. I should have—" Her voice broke, swallowed by the rain. A figure emerged from the gray curtain of the storm, moving slowly, shoulders hunched. He was young, maybe 30, with a military duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a limp that favored his left leg. His camouflage jacket was soaked, the hood pulled low over his face, but Evelyn caught the tightness in his jaw, the kind that came from carrying too much for too long. He stopped a few feet away, glancing at the bus stop's rusted sign, then at her. His eyes, tired and shadowed, softened when they landed on the photo in her hands. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low but clear, "you're gonna catch your death out here." Evelyn looked up, startled, her fingers tightening on the photograph. She hadn't expected anyone to notice her, let alone speak. "I'm fine," she murmured, though her trembling hands betrayed her. The soldier shifted his weight, wincing slightly, and set his duffel down. He reached into it, pulling out a folded wool blanket, olive green and worn but dry. "Here," he said, holding it out. "It's not much, but it's better than that coat." Evelyn blinked, her lips parting in surprise. "Oh, I couldn't," she started, but he shook his head, stepping closer. "Please," he said, softer now, almost pleading. "I'd feel better knowing you're warm." His voice had a crack in it, like he was offering more than just a blanket. Hesitant, Evelyn took it, her fingers brushing his cold, rough but steady. She draped the blanket over her shoulders, its weight grounding her, and whispered, "Thank you." The soldier sat at the far end of the bench, leaving a respectful distance between them. The rain kept falling, a steady rhythm that filled the silence. Evelyn glanced at him, noticing the way he rubbed his left knee, the faint scar running from his temple into his hairline. "You waiting for the bus, too?" she asked, her voice small but curious. He nodded, staring out at the empty street. "Yeah, headed to Dayton. Got a thing to take care of." His words were clipped, guarded, but there was something raw beneath them, like he was holding back a story too heavy to tell. Evelyn tucked the photo into her coat pocket, her hands still shaking, and pulled the blanket tighter. "You didn't have to give me this," she said, glancing at the blanket. "You look like you need it yourself." He gave a small, crooked smile, the first she'd seen. "I've been wet before. I'll live." His eyes flicked to her pocket, where the photo was hidden. "That your son?" he asked gently, as if testing the waters. Evelyn's breath hitched, her chest tightening. She nodded, unable to speak. He didn't push, just leaned back, his hands resting on his knees, and let the rain do the talking. Minutes passed, the kind that felt both endless and fleeting. Evelyn's fingers toyed with the edge of the blanket, her mind drifting to Michael, his laugh, the way he'd sneak extra pancakes when she wasn't looking, the day he shipped out, promising to write. The soldier's quiet presence pulled her back, steady and unintrusive, like a lighthouse in the fog. "My name's Evelyn," she said suddenly, surprising herself. He turned, his expression softening. "Jack," he replied, offering a small nod. Nice to meet you, Evelyn. The way he said her name, warm and deliberate, made her feel seen, like she wasn't just another old woman fading into the background. Jack, she repeated, testing it. You been in the service long? He hesitated, his fingers tracing the scar on his temple. 10 years, just got out, medical discharge. He tapped his knee lightly. Shrapnel, doesn't play nice with long walks in the rain. Evelyn's eyes widened, a pang of understanding hitting her. My Michael, he was Army too, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Didn't come home. Jack's face shifted, a flicker of pain crossing it, but he didn't look away. I'm sorry, he said, and it wasn't the hollow kind of sorry she'd heard at the funeral. It was real, heavy, like he carried his own losses. She nodded, her throat tight, and they sat there, two strangers bound by grief and rain. The conversation came slowly, like a stream finding its path. Jack asked about Michael, what he was like, what he loved. Evelyn's voice grew stronger as she spoke, her hands gesturing faintly, painting pictures of a boy who collected baseball cards and dreamed of flying planes. He was stubborn, she said, a small smile breaking through. Got that from me, I guess. Jack chuckled, a low, warm sound. Sounds like he was a good man. Evelyn's smile faded, her eyes dropping to her lap. I wasn't there enough, she admitted, her voice cracking. Worked too many shifts, missed too many games. I thought I'd have time to make it right. Jack leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, listening without judgment. You loved him, he said quietly. That's what he carried with him. Evelyn's eyes met his, searching, and found something steady there, something that made her want to believe him. She wiped at her cheek where rain and tears had mixed. What about you, Jack? You got family waiting in Dayton? His jaw tightened, and for a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Not anymore, he said finally, his voice rough. Lost my mom last year. Dad's been gone since I was a kid, just tying up loose ends now. Evelyn's heart ached, recognizing the loneliness in his words, the kind that mirrored her own. The rain began to ease, the drops lighter now, tapping softly on the bus stop's tin roof. Jack pulled a thermos from his duffel, unscrewed the cap, and poured steaming coffee into the lid. It's black, he said, offering it to her. Hope that's okay. Evelyn's hands wrapped around the warm metal, the heat seeping into her fingers. Black's just fine, she said, taking a small sip. It was bitter, strong, the kind you'd find in a roadside diner at midnight, and it warmed her from the inside out. You carry coffee everywhere? She asked, a hint of teasing in her voice. Jack shrugged, a faint grin tugging at his lips. Habit. Never know when you'll need it. They shared the coffee, passing the lid back and forth, and with each sip, the distance between them shrank. Evelyn told him about her old job at the textile mill, the way the machines hummed like a heartbeat, and Jack shared stories of his unit, the pranks they'd pulled to keep sane. His voice grew lighter when he talked about his buddies, but there was a shadow there, names he didn't say. Evelyn noticed the way his hand trembled slightly when he mentioned a mission gone wrong, and she reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist, just for a moment. You're here now, she said softly, and he looked at her, his eyes bright with something unspoken. The bus's headlights cut through the dusk, its engine rumbling as it pulled up to the stop. Jack stood, wincing as he put weight on his leg, and grabbed his duffel. Evelyn folded the blanket carefully, holding it out to him. You'll need this, she said, but he shook his head. Keep it, he said. Looks better on you. She hesitated, then tucked it under her arm, her heart full and heavy. Thank you, Jack, she said, her voice thick. For everything. He gave a small nod, his eyes holding hers. You take care, Evelyn. He boarded the bus, his limp more pronounced now, and found a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, he raised a hand, a quiet goodbye, and Evelyn waved back, her vision blurring. She stood there long after the taillights disappeared, the blanket warm against her chest, the coffee's bitterness lingering on her tongue. For the first time in years, she didn't feel quite so alone. Days turned into weeks, and Evelyn went about her routine trips to the thrift store for yarn, coffee at the corner diner where the jukebox played Elvis, evenings knitting by the radio. But something was different. She kept the blanket on her couch, its green folds a reminder of Jack's kindness, and she found herself praying for him, hoping he'd found whatever he was looking for in Dayton. The photograph of Michael stayed in her desk drawer now, not because she needed it less, but because she felt him closer, like Jack's words had unlocked a piece of her heart she'd sealed shut. She started smiling at strangers more, holding doors open, leaving extra change in the tip jar. Small things, but they added up, like ripples spreading across a still pond. She thought of Jack often, his tired eyes and crooked smile, and wondered if he was okay, if someone was looking out for him the way he'd looked out for her. It was a chilly Saturday morning, the kind where the air smelled of fallen leaves and cinnamon from the bakery down the street, when Evelyn heard a knock at her door. She set down her knitting, her brows furrowing. Nobody visited unannounced, not anymore. She opened the door, and there stood Jack, his duffel bag at his feet, a nervous smile on his face. "Evelyn," he said, his voice warm but hesitant. "Hope I'm not. I was in town and—" He rubbed the back of his neck, his scar catching the light. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide. "Jack," she breathed, stepping aside. Come in, come in." He stepped into her small living room, his boots leaving faint marks on the rug, and she noticed he was favoring his good leg less today. "Coffee?" she asked, already moving to the kitchen. "Black, right?" He chuckled, nodding. "You remembered." They sat at the table, the kettle whistling softly, and Jack set a small box between them. It was plain, wooden, with a simple carving of a star. "I went to Dayton to settle my mom's things," he said, his fingers tracing the box's edges. "Found this in her attic. It's letters from my time overseas." Evelyn's eyes softened, her hands folding in her lap. "She kept them," she said quietly, and Jack nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, and there's one in there, from a guy in my unit, Michael Carter." Evelyn froze, her breath catching. "My Michael," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jack opened the box, pulling out a yellowed envelope, the handwriting achingly familiar. "He wrote to my mom after I got hurt," Jack said, his voice low. "Said I'd saved his life once, pulled him out of a bad spot. He wanted her to know I was a good man, that she'd be proud." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes, her hands shaking as she took the letter. She read Michael's words, her Michael's, his humor, his heart, his hope that his friend would make it home. "He never told me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He was proud of you," Jack said, his own eyes bright. "And I wanted you to know." Evelyn clutched the letter to her chest, tears streaming now, a quiet sob escaping her lips. Jack stayed still, giving her time, his hand resting lightly on the table, close but not intruding. "I'm so glad you came back," she said finally, her voice raw but full of gratitude. "You didn't have to do this." Jack smiled, small and real. "I did," he said simply. "You reminded me, there's worth coming back for." They talked for hours, the coffee growing cold, sharing stories of Michael, of Jack's mom, of the people they'd loved and lost. Evelyn felt something new settle in her, not the absence of pain, but the presence of connection, fragile and precious, like a candle in the dark. Jack stayed for dinner, meatloaf and green beans, simple but warmed when he left. He promised to visit again, maybe bring coffee next time. Evelyn stood by the window, watching him go, the letter still in her hands. She thought of Michael, of Jack, of the way a single act of kindness, a blanket, a conversation, a letter had brought her back to her son, to a stranger who felt like family now. She smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years, and whispered, "Thank you." Life didn't change overnight, but it shifted, like autumn leaves catching the breeze. Evelyn kept the letter on her mantle, next to Michael's photo, and she wrote to Jack, simple notes about her days, the way the diner coffee never quite matched his thermos. He wrote back, his letter steady, telling her about his new job at a garage, the way he'd started going to church again, looking for something bigger than himself. They met when they could, sharing coffee and stories, building a friendship that felt like a gift neither had earned, but both held tight. Evelyn started volunteering at the community center, serving meals to veterans, listening to their stories, offering small kindness as a smile, a warm plate, a moment of her time. Each act felt like a ripple, reaching further than she could see, and she thought of Jack, of how a blanket in the rain had changed her life. Kindness is a quiet thing, small but mighty, like a spark that lights a fire. It doesn't need to be grand to matter, just real, given freely, received with grace. Evelyn learned that love doesn't end with loss, that hope can grow through connection, that a stranger can become a lifeline. So, dear friend, think of a moment when kindness touched your world, a smile, a hand, a word that stayed with you. Has kindness ever changed your life? Share it in the comments below, and let's spread that light together. This story is a work of fiction or dramatized for entertainment purposes. While it may be inspired by real human emotions and events, all characters, names, and situations are either entirely fictional or modified for storytelling. This content fully complies with YouTube's community guidelines and is intended to inspire, not mislead.